We're calling to order the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District regular meeting on Wednesday, September 11th, 2019 at 6 p.m. And I just want to recognize that today is the anniversary of 9/11. And let's have a moment of silence. Okay. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chelsea, would you please take roll call?
Chairman Carolyn,
Present.
Vice Chair Whip,
Here.
Director Reed, Director Baucom,
Here.
Director Marshall.
Here.
Item number 2 is public expression of non-agendized item. The board welcomes participation in board meetings. Comments shall be limited so that everyone may be heard. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board which are not posted on the agenda and items which have not already been considered by the board. Does anybody from the public wish to address the board at the podium at this time? You will no longer remain anonymous behind the camera.
I just have a question from last meeting. I don't see it necessarily on the agenda, but your $700,000 loan or payment and how it was received. I did a public records request, got quite a bit of stuff from the city. My biggest question now is the time service on that money. I hope that at some point in time, this board agendas this and sits down and talks about it. The time service for the dates that are shown right now shows that it could be a substantial amount of funds. Thank you.
Does anyone else from the gallery wish to make a comment at this time on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public expression of non-agendized item. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding changes to the mileage reimbursement policy. Chelsea, did you want to have the floor on this item?
So I handed out, if any of you guys want copies of the mileage logs. So as you guys know, our policies are super outdated, so a lot of the stuff in our policies are just, need to be updated. So on page 2 in the packet of the expense reimbursement policy, it's D2. So this one says mileage reimbursement will only be paid out of county travel that is approved by the district board and will be reimbursed at the current rate established by the IRS. So we actually recently started keeping track of our errands and mileage and realized that we kind of wanted to maybe change the mileage reimbursement policy so that it was just paid out of the bank. It was approved by the district manager and we could just have a check signed instead of going through the whole disbursement process for like a $20, $30 check. And so the current IRS rate for each mile is 58 cents. So I don't know, it's up to you guys what you want to do with the policy, but I just kind of recommend maybe tweaking it so that it doesn't have to be paid out of county travel, or it does and it can just be approved by the district manager. So we don't have to come here every month and have you approve them.
So Andrew and I are going to be going through all the policies to update them. And so this is a reasonable request that Chelsea can just work with Dave Redding to get reimbursed on this. And so we can change the policy, but I kind of like to go over the whole policy and then present the whole packet. Can we just have employees reimbursed without changing this? Because this has to do mainly with board members. And we can add a provision for employees, but I think we can just go ahead and approve this without changing this at this time.
I just wanna make sure you guys are all okay with it, because the policy technically states it needs to be approved by the board, so I didn't wanna just like have Dave approve our mileage law without bringing it to you guys.
So that in the past, we haven't been paying Chelsea or anyone in our office for their mileage. And, it was being handled depending on who the district manager was, however they were handling it, I'm not sure. And I thought it was important that we actually have a policy specifically on how to reimburse employees that are traveling within the county. So I would like to have a policy in place so that she could get reimbursed, just like if we're traveling out of the county. But you can always, when you do your review of the policies, amend it and present to this board any recommendation you like.
Okay, because right now it only talks about board of directors, so you could just put in a general reimbursement for employees. You could add just a general
Right.
added.
So did you update the policy at all here, or is this just?
No, this is
current one?
literally as of March 26, 2008, I haven't done any, this is the exact printout out of the policy book. If, like Julie said, if you guys just wanna wait to revise the entire policy as a whole when they're ready, we could just approve these mileage logs
Or
vice
we
versa.
can we just direct the district manager to approve mileage for employees
Yeah,
that
but
don't have company,
mhm.
cars?
I would like to at least change the one part of the policy where it says mileage reimbursement will only be paid for out-of-county travel. If we could just take out.
And approved by district board too.
Right.
How about if we just add one for employees? Because this is for district managers. Leave this the way it's written and just add a 5,
Okay,
number 5.
yeah,
It says that the
So we could
district
say
manager shall.
district employees.
Is there a difference between the employees and staff? Would the word staff create any differences?
That would be a question for
Yeah.
Doug.
It gives a little broader, I think.
Well, any staff is an employee.
Right.
So employees will cover it.
Contract.
My concern, yeah, if the district had contractors, but that's a different issue. This whole section applies only to board of directors.
Yeah.
And so, and under state law, you are required to reimburse employees if they're required to use their vehicle.
Exactly.
So we don't need to add it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be added. When you redo the policies, you
Yeah.
should do it.
Yeah.
But I think the district manager has the authority to reimburse
That's what
employees for their in-county travel regardless of this policy, because this policy, first of all, doesn't really apply to them.
Right.
Okay,
And second of all, state law requires that employees get reimbursed for their mileage.
okay.
Yep.
So,
So I think we can kind of just leave it as it is, just with direction to the district manager to authorize reimbursements for work-related travel.
And if we're gonna start doing it monthly, I think that's an accumulation of the beginning of June. If you guys want me to start including the monthly mileage logs in the agenda packets, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much? Yeah. Each month.
Well, I mean, the expense will be in the check detail,
Hmm.
or the county expenses, depending on what you guys want me to do, whether you want me to write it out of QuickBooks or send it to the county.
so if we do it monthly, it'll be very small.
Very
So
small,
if
yeah.
you're okay with maybe doing it quarterly,
Oh, yeah.
you
that's
can
fine.
give us monthly reports if you like, or quarterly, if that's okay with the board.
Quarterly is fine, because.
And then we can
yeah.
do quarterly reimbursements with approval of the district manager
Okay.
and his
As long as
oversight.
it's separated from your wages.
Oh, no, yeah,
mileage
it'd be a
reimbursement.
completely separate check.
It's completely separate.
Yeah, because it's not
Taxed
taxable.
differently.
It's not taxable.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is approval of your current travel somewhere in this agenda.
No, because I didn't put it in here. I mean.
Okay, so it's
I
just
kind of-
direction to the district manager to approve your travel. at
Yeah, I
this
kind of,
point. get
I
you.
put in the policy, because if you change the policy, then it would give the district manager authority to approve it, so
Okay.
I think if you just give direction.
Is there any additional discussion by the board on this item, or any comments?
Quarterly.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
if that's okay with Chelsea.
Yeah, that's
Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number 4. Discussion and possible action regarding 1010 Left Porch. Do I have, is this a presentation by Director Whiff? Or?
No.
This
No,
would
this
be
is-
a question that I was posed, and I tried to put Chelsea in contact with someone that would be knowledgeable about the situation. Now, did the tribal administrator contact you?
No, so, just so everyone's aware of what the issue with 1010 Left Court is, for fiscal year 18 and 19 and 19 and 20, they have been on our delinquent accounts list. The problem is they aren't paying their monthly sewer bill, so when we go to send the tax roll to the county so that those charges get put on a property tax bill, we can't, they don't have one for, it's Indian land. So we have no way of collecting it. So the total amount that they, that this certain address owes us, I don't even know who the property owner is because it's not something I can look up at the county, just not there, is $1,823.48. So on average, I would say it hasn't been paid for a couple years.
And did Travis Sorum from the Indian Health Service didn't contact you?
No.
Okay.
And I just wanted to address the board because the county actually got back to me in an email after I sent them the tax roll that you guys approved last month, saying that they're gonna have to remove it off the tax roll and I need to re-verify the amount of accounts and the amount of money because they're unable to collect on that.
So I believe the only option we have to collect on an account that's not paying their bill is to stop their sewer line somehow, but I don't even know if that's lawful on tribal land. I don't know, maybe,
And I'd have to look into that. My guess is the owner of the property is a tribe. And so I would have to research of how we can, how we can collect against the tribe.
Director Baucom?
Can I just comment on when you're referring, you should refer to federal native lands and not use the word Indian. It's offensive now to.
Well, the actual name of the,
The
is-
Pinoyville
doesn't matter.
Indian
It's-
tribe?
It doesn't matter. We shouldn't
Okay.
refer to it. It's native lands or federal native
Okay.
lands or whatever.
that's just the name.
Yeah, yeah, just to be
I can, I will
politically
continue
correct.
with Travis and have the tribal administrator contact you.
Perfect, thank you.
Apparently he's been out of town. I was with Travis yesterday. He said that he had got the message to him and that he had encouraged him to contact you.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Does the board wish to wait and see what comes of that before we ask anybody to do any more research on this?
I would think. I believe that the tribe will stand behind it, or they can procure some funds from the Indian Health Service or something, you know.
Does the board have any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? No. Okay. So just to wrap that up, Jared, you can follow up with Chelsea on this and see if we can connect with the
And you may
native land.
be able to call the tribal administrator at the Pinoyville, it's a Pinoyville tribe. And I don't remember his name.
Do you know what the name of it, what the name of it is, so I can look up the tribe and try to get a number for him?
It's the Pinoyville tribe. It's in they have a tribal center that I'm sure if you contact the tribal center,
Tribal accounts.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can get you that information.
okay.
yeah, and I can text it to you also,
I've dealt with
or
her.
email it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, probably didn't even know it was overdue. Okay. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding, item number 5. Discussion and possible action regarding El Dorado Sewer Lift Station. So Jared, you have any information on this?
I believe it was discussed last month briefly in regards to the upgrades. We received an email today. Apparently Tim Erickson was trying to get a hold of Dave. Dave's, of course, out of state, doesn't have cell phone reception. So we've got this email. It says, I left you a voicemail regarding this issue. On tonight's agenda, the above subject item has been awarded by the Ukiah City Council. The action that is necessary by the district board in order to repair your facility is the authority to expend the funds. I would suggest and hope you would support an additional 10% of the 10% of expense for change orders. This is an additional expense, would be at the discretion of the city engineer, director of public works. And the recommended action is approve the expense for the reconstruction of the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District facility known as the El Dorado Lift Station. The total expense approved is the total of the contractor's bid, $137,650. And 10% change order as approved by the city engineers, $13,765, bringing the total approved expenses to $151,415.
Now, in that, the city has already purchased the pumps and the pump station.
Those were purchased before our new, I talked to Sean, before our new participation agreement
Yeah,
was put in place, so they were ordered, and he said it's a proprietary type of pump that.
So we've already been charged for it. That
Yes.
was my question.
So it's
if
just
it
for
was going to be
installation.
added to this.
Just for installation.
I didn't see anything specific saying we've already been charged for it, but if pumps were already ordered, I'm sure we were.
Yeah, it's been sitting in the city's
Yeah.
yard for quite a while.
I had a question about the change order. Is that in case there needs to be a change, or is, That's just in
That's my
case.
understanding.
yeah,
So I haven't talked to Tim on that, but I would imagine that's very much the case. And if the board does choose to approve the 10% change order, I think we just ask for some sort of documentation from the city or the contractor on what the overrun was,
if it occurs?
if
Yeah.
it occurs.
Okay. And that's pretty standard, isn't it, Ernie, for a big construction job to?
Well, I wouldn't foresee, it's a relatively unimproved area. I can't see that there would be any, real unknowns in the job.
I don't, on the recommended action, isn't it a replacement of the lift station?
Yes.
Right, not a reconstruction? We're putting in a brand new one,
They're
right?
putting in a new one.
Okay.
The existing one is of a different style that they, not as modern as the one they're putting in. It was placed in the early 80s.
So you're our expert on this. Does this look up to par and acceptable, and a 10% is industry standard?
I think Tim sent me the bid. I actually didn't,
I'm
It's
looking
in
at it.
here.
It's right
I
here.
never got to look at any of this.
It's only 12 items.
Yeah, they got several bids, so I'm sure that it's, or they got, what, three bids?
Yeah, 3 bids.
Jared, before you received this, did you have any communication from the city on the 3 bids and maybe why they went with this one?
No, I did not. I don't know how much information Dave had on it at all either. First time I've seen the 3 bids was today.
Is there any additional board discussion? Is there anyone from the gallery wishing to comment on this item?
State San Giacomo City Manager, City of Ukiah. Just a few of the questions that were going around, I might be able to provide some clarity. The attachment 1 to the staff report that was transmitted to the district, that's part of your packet, has the 3 bidders and the breakdown of the bids. So all that's been presented, of course, to the board for your consideration. In public works contracts, as long as the bids are responsive and in order, it's lowest bid. The company, Bartley Pump, is the lowest bid that was received, that was deemed to be responsive at $137,650. There's 2 other bids that were received that were $162,000, $174,000 respectively. That I rounded those 2 numbers, but you can see the exact prices. So all of that information was transmitted to the board prior to this board meeting for your review and consideration. In public works bidding under the city's code, there's automatically a 10% contingency that's added to all public works projects. And so that's an assumption on our part that that's a standard practice. It's only up to that amount as approved for approved change orders. Anything that would go over that amount would have to come back to both the city council and to this board for approval, which could complicate things slightly given the timing of the board. So we'll have to work through and with the district and the district manager as we take on construction projects like this. I do want to point out, as I think Director Whiff indicated, this is a really old facility. And while the pumping unit that goes in it's kind of like a kit, I would describe it as a kit unit that goes in. The facility it's going into is old, and so when you pull something old out and you're putting something new in, there's things that you may uncover as you go through that installation project that are unknowns. And so there could be unknowns that we're unaware of as we go through it, and we'll just again have to work with the district and the district manager should we encounter those. We invite, of course, as we encounter those issues, inspection from the district manager for verification and other purposes like that to just ensure that there's good communication as we move through it. But I worry because the change order amount of $13,000 is a relatively small change order amount, and when you dig something up, you never know what you're going to find in the condition of the facility. This is also a critical pump station too that I want to point out.
Very, because it's right against the river.
It is right against the river, so it's been deemed to be a high priority. If this station were to fail, it could have significant implications with regards to the environment and also potential penalties associated with that failure of that station. So it is something that's long overdue and needs to take place. So we encourage the board's support of this item.
Do you know, and maybe Ernie can answer, how they bypass and continue pumping while it's being replaced? Is there a bypass that's put in temporarily?
Well, they're gonna actually leave the existing in service, I believe, from what I didn't look at the job, but I would think that they would leave the existing in service. They'll place a new one adjacent to it.
Okay.
Then they will cut over they can do multiple things. They can tie into the existing outfall line and keep it operational, so that then all they have to do is cut over the incoming and it's ready to go. I don't know exactly.
It says
how
tie into
it-
existing.
I'm sure there's some of it left in the discretion of the contractor. Usually they give us, this is what we want. They don't tell you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you worked with Bartley before? Have they done anything for the city before?
I don't recall that. I mean, certainly we could look at that type of information, but again, in public works bidding, if you have a qualified contractor with the appropriate licensing, and they're not on any excluded bidding list, which they are not, none of these contractors are, they're deemed to be responsive bids, and you have a requirement to accept the low bid.
Thank you.
I have, and it wasn't a pleasant experience.
Oh, well, that's just. Does anyone else from the public wish to comment on this item?
Yes.
Seeing none. Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry.
Lee Howard. You know, I look at this and again, the professionalism here always just overwhelms me. You get something that the city says is their standard operating procedure for a 10% override on everything, that they're willing to let the engineer, the city staff, play that any way they want. The district doesn't have that luxury unless they adopt it in a form that sets it up that way. The reality is if they're a good set of plans and the contractor you have on this job is competent and capable, he's done several of these before, he's not new to it. The reality is you shouldn't be looking at 10%. The simple part of it is that if there is a thing, you hate to even think of it, but you could call an emergency meeting to approve the thing. They say it isn't much money. Excuse me? It's still a chunk of change. You can do whatever you please, it looks like to me, and nobody can really challenge it, but I just think that if you move ahead and you have somebody doing plans and specifications for you, that should be in your package when it first comes out, not handed to you the last few minutes of the before the meeting. Thank you.
Does anyone else from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment at this time. I have a question for you, Director Vice Chair Witt. When you give a bid to a job, do you build in a 10% change order?
No. No, but
Or request a 10% change
there is,
order?
you know, and what we have to rely on is the city's engineers' determination if the conditions have changed significantly, I believe, you know. Like I said, I didn't look at these plans. I don't know, I know what the job entails. It's not a job that I can see that there could be a real change from what's proposed. It's unimproved ground, you're not gonna run in, you know, usually, a lot of times what would happen is you would go to excavate and you're going to run into an existing utility that's gonna force you to move, so you've completed a portion of the excavation and spent money doing things that now you can't utilize. And you know, something like that could occur in this, but I don't believe that it's away from their irrigation system. I was there last week researching where the gravity line came to this and kind of walked around and looked at the site, and I didn't see anything that could really change it that significantly from what the plans would propose.
Director Reed?
I just want to clarify that it's not the contractor asking for an additional 10%. It's the city saying that it's their standard practice. To me, it sounds like an insurance policy of it is difficult to try to get two organizations to have a meeting to vote on something if something changes. So if they have that cushion in order to make minor changes, like Ernie's saying, if something comes up, they can do that on the fly. And at this point, we're trusting that the city would be able to make those decisions in the best interest of both sides. So they're not saying we have to approve the additional 10%. We can approve the bid as is, correct? So
Yep.
It's approved as is with a 10% contingency, in my mind.
well,
That
the
doesn't require the city to come back to this board and request
Another 5,000.
another $3,000 or $4,000 or something.
I think it's 13.
right.
That, you know, they're.
It's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
They're not saying that they
Yeah.
anticipate it happening, but it's standard practice for them.
But Tim Erickson has also said that he will keep Dave Redding, discuss any changes or problems with Dave Redding.
Yeah, Tim called me today and actually asked me to talk about this, and I got in so late I didn't have time to review the bid. I was surprised to see Sage.
Well, looking at the bid, I don't see how they're taking something new and putting it into something old, because it actually looks like everything, cabinet, a new power pole, everything new is going next to the old, right?
Yes.
And these numbers look rounded off. They're all zeros, nothing is an odd number. So but obviously it hasn't been calculated down to how many hours it will take. It's all an estimate, right? And hopefully when a company is estimating, they're giving themselves a little leeway, right? They're not gonna underbid themselves. I feel more comfortable having a little bit more control over our $14,000 and having the city communicate with us, and if we need to approve additional funds beyond the $137,650, we could always have a special meeting. You know, I'm not comfortable just throwing an extra $14,000 out on the table to be spent without us being able to approve that and have the oversight of that. I'm sorry, public comments closed.
Okay, well,
Yes, Director.
I feel it's reasonable for a 10% overrun on construction jobs, and I'm sure that Tim is not gonna, unless they run into some, unforeseen problems. I think it would be, it's such a critical facility and it needs to be done before it starts raining. I think it's reasonable, so I don't have a problem with it.
Director Ruff?
Yeah, they're not gonna authorize any, change order unless, the way the process works in Public Works is you identify an issue and submit that issue. Now, the issue is in your mind. It might not be that you're not up to speed completely on the contract documents or some of the other finer points, and they could very well deny a change order just as easily as authorize it. I don't believe that. I think that they're just not wanting, if there is a change, not wanting to have to come back for a special meeting and or authorization for any additional expense up to 10%. It's kind of standard practice in the Public Works arena.
Yeah, and I can understand why it would be a standard, because you wouldn't want to have to go back and revisit. try to
Could
do
take
that.
a week to get a meeting set up for him.
But I also think that, it would also depend on the size or the price or the cost of a project. How, when we start getting into larger projects, does this 10% begin to expand? I mean, now it's like,
No.
Well, I mean, it would expand if the price was higher. I mean,
yeah, well, at that point, then you're starting to go, okay, so.
10%.
Right, exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Well, if it's $1 million project, then we're talking,
$100,000.
Yeah.
yeah. So
So we would look at that,
that would be something I want to
yeah.
look at. At the price of this project, I don't see it as too much, but as the projects increase and the costs increase, then obviously you want to
Well, it
revisit
would
each
be a
one.
case by case. We're not proving that every single project the city does automatically gets a 10%. This is this case,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So
But
they'll
I
all
think-
come
It's
forward.
every single one will have this. It's the standard practice for the city.
I know, but we're talking about this one right now. It doesn't matter what one comes
I
up
think
earlier
I
or
think we
later.
can approve the bid and accept it for $137,650, and then we can have a separate motion to allow the city engineer to the discretion of $13,765 for change orders. And I would feel comfortable with two motions.
I'll make both those motions.
I'll second them.
Okay, let's make one motion at a time, please.
Okay.
Read that back.
I accept the bid.
So the recommended action is to approve the expense for the replacement of the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District facility known as the El Dorado Lift Station for the contractor's bid of $137,650.
Yes.
I
And
second.
there's a second by Director Baucom. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed. And then a second motion.
Would be to authorize a 10% contingency for unforeseens on
Discretion.
the, or
At the discretion.
13,000 at the discretion of the city engineer or staff.
10% change order as approved by the city engineer in the amount of $13,765.
Yes.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Okay. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding approval of grand jury response. I'm gonna open this up to public comment first of all. It was on the front page of the paper and online, so does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item at this time?
The response was?
Yes?
Yes.
It was in the paper.
All 171 pages of it?
Well, the response is actually 14 pages,
Is there gonna be,
all the attachments.
is there gonna be staff presentation before public comment, so we have the opportunity to hear the staff presentation?
No, there's no official presentation. Do you have any comments you would like to make on this? This is open up to the public.
Okay, I was just checking, and there's no.
Would you like to make a public comment at this time regarding this item?
I was only indicating that it would be nice to have, if there was going to be a presentation provided by the attorneys or staff, that the public have the opportunity to hear that presentation. It's kind of premature to provide public comment prior to that presentation. But if that's not going to be granted, or that opportunity is not going to exist, then I'll make my comments now.
Please make your comments.
Okay, thank you. I have had the opportunity to review the responses, and without going into a great deal of detail with regards to the responses to the grand jury report, I will say that I believe that there's information that's characterized inappropriately, and information that is not factual. Not factual based upon the attachments that are provided in the agreements that both the city and the district have agreed to. However, without dwelling on those points, because really I think the overall purpose of the grand jury report was to point out that the city and the district need to work together, and that the course of what we've been going down is not working for the community, and it's not working for the operation of the system. Unfortunately, I think that the responses don't reflect that. It just reflects more of the same. In fact, I can't even imagine how much the district has paid attorneys to write those responses. The whole purpose of the settlement and moving on was to eliminate the expenses from the attorneys so we could focus on the operation of the system. And I've been before this board after and since both agencies have approved the participation, the new participation agreements and settlement agreement, and I've cautioned, I don't think we're going down that path. And this is just, these responses are case in point to that very issue. Unless, both the city and the district board are going to step up and say enough is enough and we need to move on, it's going to continue. The district's fees on attorneys continue to be excessive in my opinion. They outpace nothing close to what the city.
This item is about the grand jury response.
I understand that, and I think these are covered within the grand jury's responses, I think. So I would encourage that we get beyond this type of back and forth, and we move forward with what the work of the people and the system needs to be.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, public comment will be closed at this time. And Mr. James, would you like to come up to the table and answer any questions that the board might have regarding the response?
Nice to meet you. Thanks. Don't look what I said is cool. As to your invite, I just merely start out by saying what is included in the draft of the response is all that really needs to be said by us. I didn't need to come here and make any kind of presentation. The documents there support each factual statement in here, which is significantly different than the grand jury report, which would make statements and have no facts to support the statements on a number of occasions. So I hope you've had an opportunity to review it. We tried to keep it as short as possible. It's not meant to be confrontational as it relates to the city. It's meant to be responding to the request of the grand jury.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
When the grand jury was doing the report, I know I did get a letter for the grand jury requesting to speak to me. And at that time, I contacted you regarding that because they were wanting me to sign a document which said anything that was discussed in that room, I would not be able to discuss outside of that room, and I felt a little uncomfortable about that. Did you have any follow-up to that with the grand jury? And also, at the time, I was never contacted again, whether it was written communication or verbal, asked any questions. And it was my understanding that we communicated with the grand jury through you that they could give us questions. And I was just wondering what your interaction with the grand jury foreman was, and if we did get any questions that we answered or gave them any documentation prior to the report.
To be very specific, you and I earlier had a conversation regarding this, so I went back through correspondence from my office to the foreman of the grand jury, which took place on 3 different occasions. The first occasion was in December of 2018, and at that time we had been contacted by you because you had received a request to come before the grand jury to testify. And as part of the request, you were requested to sign, prior to your testimony, a confidentiality document. Now, that confidentiality document would be such that you could never have a conversation with any third party regarding your testimony. I took exception to that. And I took exception to that for a variety of reasons. One of which is during the 12 years I was a prosecutor in this county and district attorney, 10 of those 12 I also served as county counsel. And so I'm really quite familiar with how grand juries work. Now, in those days, the county counsel, the grand jury did both. You had a civil and criminal was done by the same group of people. But it's no different than today, except the manner in which they're selected. And I know that I know it was a few years ago, witnesses were never required to sign any such document as they were trying to get you to sign. My attitude was that you have an attorney, you have a right to communicate with your attorney. Your attorney has a right to protect you. You go in cold to a grand jury for testimony, and if it's sworn testimony, you can be prosecuted for perjury. I'm never going to allow a client to sign a document like that. And I wouldn't allow you to sign that document. And so I made contact with the foreman of the grand jury, and he and I and Kit sat together and had a really very nice meeting out at the county offices and discussed it. And I indicated at that meeting, we're happy to cooperate with you anyway. I would be happy to allow my client to sign a confidentiality agreement, even though I disagreed with it, if there was an exclusion from that confidentiality agreement that the client could have a conversation or discuss anything the client chose to with the attorney. Kid Elliott had a little disagreement with my interpretation of the law. That's okay. There's always two sides to every lawsuit. That's why you got two different lawyers. I disagreed strongly with what her position was. And I said, give me an agreement. We'll sign it. During that meeting, we really didn't discuss any of the facts or things like that. But at the same time, I sent to the grand jury a book. And it is the information in that book that I sent to them is exactly the factual information that Sean White and I sat down with and went through. And Sean finally recognized that the calculations the city had on ESSUs was inaccurate. And that is what resulted in finally the district getting this extra, 671 ESSUs, which is like $7 million worth of connection fees. I never had an inquiry back from the grand jury as to any additional documents. The information that I sent to them was fully supported by documents. At a subsequent time, it was in May, I think. Again, I had communications with Mr. Prince. And I won't only get into the important stuff, but during the course of that communication, I broke down the settlement as the district views the settlement, which may be different than as the city views the settlement, but the city wants to say that the amount we recovered is not damages, but damages are defined by the court, not how you wish them to be, but how they are. And damages are monies you recover through litigation. And that's how we recovered our money. So I sent all of this information to the foreman of the grand jury. I explained how the information came about. Never heard another question, never heard from him again. So anyway, I think that the district board has, with the exception of signing a agreement which would prohibit you from having a conversation with your own attorney, it doesn't have to be me. I mean, you could, hire some other lawyer. Under their agreement, you couldn't talk to that lawyer about your testimony. I'm not gonna let that happen. And if the grand jury chose to push it, fine. I sent a copy of my letter to the presiding judge of the Superior Court. So the presiding judge was exactly aware of the position I was taking.
So can we circle back to the response?
Yeah, I have comments
So
throughout.
that's why this whole thing began, and that's my contacts with the grand jury in your behalf.
But Duncan, I wanted to point out that Sean White was the one that, at your request, that found the mistakes that gave us more ESSUs, but he also found that the city had undercut themselves with.
Yeah, by 300.
So it wasn't like they were trying to steal the calculations, and it wasn't his calculations. The previous calculations were done incorrectly. He found them and he corrected them. So for both the city and the district, so we actually have more capacity than we thought. So
Yes.
it wasn't kind of a collusion type thing to take money away from us. It was-
Back to the response.
It wasn't,
That-
but
that
it
would
could
be-
have been done years before.
Yeah,
That was the same
And it wasn't.
information I had given to them for a long time.
yeah.
And Sean and I sat down and worked together on this, and we basically agreed that what happened before 2004, nobody could do anything about.
I'm gonna
They
point
were
more-
too out of balance, and you had to
Talking about
work with
this.
the 2,400 ESSUs that were part of
It's
your
in the
bond.
report.
And so
So that's
Sean
resolved.
discovered in his Excel spreadsheets there were, I think, 3 multiplication or additional errors and it resulted in an increase in city ESFUs of about 300, I believe, something. I think I have that in some of the documents. The districts went up about that.
Well, it's not mentioned in the response, and I'd like that added, not only the district's ESSUs, but the cities, so.
Yeah,
I-
it's mentioned.
But it can be, that is appropriate in the city's response. We are only responsible for responding to
No,
the
because
districts.
what
We're
we're,
representing our ratepayers.
no, but what this document is just slamming. We need to be more professional. I think this document is unprofessional. We can get our points across without being, and I'll point out each one that I think.
Okay, because I don't see it as a slam.
I don't see it
I
as
see
a
that
I see it
basically.
as pretty
No,
unprofessional.
I see that there was these questions by the grand jury, and we addressed those questions.
Yeah, but
And those questions were addressed
They-
accurately, and I think that
they're not, well.
there wasn't any
let's go-
slamming going on.
Bring
I
up
think
your
there-
first one that
Okay,
you have a problem
so,
with.
okay, so on page, and I would like it numbered, it's not numbered, so, the response, so
Yeah, it's a
page.
draft, so if everybody
Yeah.
could just take a moment to number their pages and we'll all be on the same page.
So the very first one that
On the
says
top
submitted.
page, just make it one,
Yeah.
and then just go on through, and you'll see that there
Okay,
are a
so-
total of 14 pages.
So page 3. Introduction, okay, so in the introduction, the third paragraph down, and I'm just gonna go over what each change I have. The district is now free from the unfair and one-sided participation agreement. Okay,
Which was actually mentioned by a previous grand
okay,
jury
I
analysis.
don't have I'm just reading it, okay,
Okay.
can I get to my
Yeah.
point there? As is, agreement as it had been amended over the years and is looking forward to working with the city and making cost-efficient changes. For instance, instead of, looking forward to making cost-efficient changes, because the whole point is to work with the city. So we're looking forward to working with the city and making cost-efficient changes. Okay, that's my first
Wait,
recommendation.
I didn't see a change.
It says
She
that.
wants to say working in,
Working with the
Inserting.
city, we are looking forward to working with the city and making cost-efficient changes. The operating agreement promotes transparency and gives blah, 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 okay? The district has since hired an experienced manager.
Just so we're clear, you moved to the next paragraph.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the next paragraph, the district has since hired an experienced manager. The district has recently hired an experienced manager. This is very recent at a substantial savings to the district ratepayers. I mean, we fumbled around quite a bit with district managers and gave them all kinds of stuff.
Well, doesn't-
So it's very recent that Dave Redding, thank God, and Jared have come on board.
Doesn't this mean since the issuing of the grand jury report, we've hired a district manager?
Well,
So
I think
really,
it's just,
they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
That since this report, we have hired a district manager.
okay. It says in the same paragraph, processes under the operating agreement serve to provide monthly, quarterly, and annual reports, something lacking in the past, okay? This is new, these monthly, quarterly, annual reports in each meeting and extend important oversight over the expenses it is charged both by the district and the city, not that it is charged by the city. This is expense reports of both charges by the district and the city,
No, we are not responsible for
which has
city-
already been proven valuable.
We don't make monthly, quarterly, and annual reports on behalf of the city. We
No.
have Jeff.
We get
with
information from them and
So
we
we don't make-
present it in the meetings.
We don't make reports on that information.
We
The
present
reports
it
we
in the
made
meeting.
are with district funds.
No, each meeting we present the cities and the districts.
no, we
They
don't
give it
present
to us.
those.
Yes,
That's
it's
not
in
our-
our agenda.
That's given by the city. We
Yes.
did not put that report together. We did
That's
not
right.
present that.
I didn't say it did. I'm saying that in the operating agreement, we provide reports, something that was lacking in the past, okay?
We
So this,
provide our reports, they provide their reports.
and we include them in our meetings now, so that we have transparency, we can look at everything from the city and the district. Okay, then for the responses, F1 through F8 or 9, whatever, beginning the response with the district disagrees wholly with this finding. Okay, for the district to disagree wholly with each findings, each member would have to vote. We don't need to start the response with the district disagrees wholly, the district disagrees partly. I would like to just leave that sentence out and begin with, the lawsuit settlement did not have unresolved issues resulting in arbitration, like F1, okay?
Excuse me, take a breath. I'd like to ask our attorneys, there's a certain format that we are required to follow
That's exactly
when we
the
have
format.
responses.
The format here is the format required by the penal code.
933.05.
That you
I
have to
it
write,
I have it, a copy of it if any board members would like to see. It specifies how you have to respond. You have to say you either disagree wholly or you disagree partially and why.
Okay.
And that is the exact language that's required.
okay. So in F1, the second paragraph. The parties did not engage in the budget process that led to the dispute until after the lawsuit was settled. Further, the parties have yet to engage arbitration over the budget disputes. And I would like to add, and every effort is being brought forth to settle this these disagreements without arbitration. And I know that we're trying to settle this without arbitration. It's just,
So can we, let's stop. If we are going to implement changes, we need to make them and vote on them. So if you just keep rushing along and giving us all your changes, unless we get some board discussion and agreement on this, this is gonna be too much to catch up on. I'm not in favor of taking your document and adopting it as a whole, because clearly, some of the changes you have
But
made
you
are not consistent with the code.
you
about
see,
how to
I
write
saw
these.
this 48 hours ago. And for me just to approve it as it
We're
is.
not going to, what I just said, we need board discussion
Okay,
on items before you move to the next, so we can discuss it as a board, whether we would like to put that into the response.
okay,
So if we could take the item that you just mentioned
yeah,
and discuss that as a board.
okay, so that, I just wanted
Could we go
to,
back to her item then on page 3, if you're gonna follow that process, because we're talking about a change in the language of the first sentence of the third paragraph under introduction. And she said that it is looking forward to working with the city to making cost-efficient changes.
and to make cost-efficient changes. As it has been amended over the years and is looking forward to working with the city and making cost-efficient changes.
Does any board member have a comment on that item?
I think it wouldn't be and, I think it would be to make, but
Okay,
I believe that
Well, I guess they would have two different intents, whether you say to or and, right?
I believe that the intent of the operating agreement was to work with the city.
good,
Okay,
so let's state it. Good, thank you very much.
So,
So let's state it.
Can you please let him finish his sentence?
I think we're getting too far in the weeds,
Yeah.
that is where I think you're going.
It's just a few words. What, if you can't even add a few words, I mean,
The way I see this document was a response to the grand jury. And you're adding words, it seems like you want to make it more palatable to
I wanna
people
make
that
it
are
a
reading, so
little
it looks like
more
we're cooperating
professional.
more
yeah,
with it.
sure, that's one of them. Yeah, you're right, Ken. You're right, I want
Okay.
it more professional and more,
Copacetic, like with working with
Yeah.
the city.
But I don't know if that was the intent of the document. The intent of the document, as far as I understood it, was that the grand jury was trying to find, they wanted us to change the way that we did things here on the
And
board.
we have been, and you notice that,
So that's a little bit different than, what you want to do is you want to address the things that we have made improvement upon.
no, I want a true representation of that this board in the past has been dysfunctional, has been aggressive toward the city, has not trusted the city, and we have changed, and we are being
Too far on
more,
that.
well, we're being more transparent and more cooperative, and so I want that to be reflected.
That, we
That's
have to address their findings.
Yeah,
That's all we
exactly.
do.
And-
No,
exactly.
please let me finish talking. Okay? I have the floor at this time. We address their findings with facts.
And that's what
We-
yeah, that's what I think I'm doing.
I have the floor. We address their findings with facts. We don't need to fluff it up.
I'm
The
not
grand,
fluffing.
I have the floor. The grand jury made assumptions that were not true. They made assumptions that were not true, and that has to be addressed. How we interact with the city and how we work with them is completely separate from this document. This is a response to the grand jury.
Now,
We,
can I address what you just said? Not when we have not cooperated in the past. So we're, it is pertinent, I think it is, each.
let's take the first change
I
to a
don't believe
vote.
so.
Would-
I believe you're barking up the wrong
Would you
tree.
like to make a motion to change the third paragraph of this grand jury response?
Sure.
What is that change? What's your motion?
I wrote down what she wanted inserted, it's quote, working with the city to make.
Cost efficient
Is
change.
there a
Just
second?
Insert it that way.
Is there a second to that motion?
One second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. I didn't hear your vote, Ken.
Nay. I don't see it making any difference to the document.
Okay, so Director Rafe, you voted aye.
I don't see any difference, so if that makes Julie happy, let's go.
So the first item will say, looking forward to working with the
I think I
city
took out
and making cost-efficient changes.
Two.
Yeah, to make, yeah.
I got it.
Okay. Next item.
Did you get that?
She had the fourth paragraph with the annual report.
Yeah, and annual reports, something lacking in the past. They were lacking in the past. And
Is there a
extend,
motion to put in the grand jury response, the district was lacking in the past?
can we
to the
finish the
sentence?
whole sentence first? It's, under the operating agreement served to provide monthly, quarterly, and annual reports, something lacking in the past, and extend important oversight over the expenses it is charged.
So we weren't lacking all reports in the past. That's not a true statement, and I don't feel comfortable putting that in here. We have had reports in the past. We received reports from the city of Ukiah and put them in our agenda packets for 10 years. And so I don't feel comfortable putting in a public document that we've never put out any reports in the past. Yes?
And I do remember some of those reports that were missing was because we weren't getting all the information we needed in order to create a report.
Why didn't we have audits for 5 years?
Well, that's not a monthly, quarterly, or annual report. The audits are addressed in a separate issue. in this.
Okay, let's go on to the next, F1. The first, or the second paragraph, the parties, I don't know why we have in fact, I would cross that out and start with, the parties did not engage in the budget process that led to the dispute after the lawsuit was settled. Further, the parties have yet to engage arbitration over the budget disputes. And then I would add, and every effort is being brought forth to settle these disagreements without arbitration.
Every effort by the district.
Sure. And,
The point of the response, just so I can make it clear, the point of it is they said that we have unresolved issues resulting in arbitration. No arbitration has taken place, period. So that's a false statement on the part of the grand jury.
So you're saying that's a fact?
They said that's their
Current
finding.
arbitration.
They said there's
It-
Yeah, I know, but
there-
you're telling me that there's been no arbitration?
there
Not-
is no arbitration.
So that's a fact?
That's a fact.
Okay, then
there's
that,
been a letter that, right, that says
Yeah,
we
we're
need to
trying,
meet.
we're still trying to resolve things, but
Yeah.
no arbitration is taking place.
Right,
So it says, so the finding,
They say
the
current
grand jury
arbitration.
said, we are currently in arbitration.
Which is untrue.
And that is not true. So
Okay.
all we're doing is responding and saying, no, we are not in arbitration.
and we're gonna
we-
make every effort so that we
That's-
bring forth to settle these
That is not
disagreements
necessary to answer the question.
arbitration. And well, in the last part of that, the district is an independent government entity. There are few, if any, functions performed by the district that duplicate services performed by the city aside from those inherent in a joint system. For example, I mean, we just throw that out there without any examples. I wonder if we should put for an example of what, the functions that we do that are not a duplication.
The city doesn't represent the district ratepayers. The district represents the district ratepayers. And so there's two different bodies being represented. There's two different entities that govern over two different groups of people.
Well, you're saying that in the
So, I
first
mean,
sentence.
that's, you asked something, and so I'm
Okay,
throwing a thought at you,
okay,
if you want something.
all right, so.
Otherwise, the city does all the financial, the city does all the construction, the city does all the billing and collection.
Does all the
And the
bids.
only thing that the district has done in the past is, like you did earlier tonight, I approve the new pump station. Okay, that's what you do. That's basically all the board has ever done, is approve or disapprove things brought to it by the city.
Okay. For example, approval of, construction within the district, or,
It's not duplicate.
That's not a duplicate. So this is
Yeah,
saying
that's why
there's
you're
few
saying
duplicates.
that it isn't a duplicate, okay. Well, that's not necessarily necessary, but I don't see why and every effort is being brought forth to settle these disagreements without arbitration.
But it's only saying we're in current arbitration, so we're just saying, no, we're not.
Yeah, we're saying we're not, and we're making an effort so that we don't get to arbitration. Every effort is being brought forth to settle these disagreements without going into arbitration, because we have a letter of intent that we will go into arbitration if this isn't settled. You know, we've made the first steps that are required.
You gotta walk before you're on, and that's all we're trying to do right now.
But we're trying to resolve it without.
Just in order to facilitate this moving forward, if you'd like to make a motion for a change, let's do that and vote on it.
Okay,
Instead
so
of
I would just
discussing everything.
add at the end of the second paragraph that every effort is being brought forth to settle these disagreements without arbitration. Since we're not in it yet, we're trying to resolve them without arbitration. So I
I
make a
think you need to
motion
say that the
Every-
district.
Every effort is being brought forth to,
by the district is brought,
The district is making every effort.
yeah, a new sentence then. The district,
so can you read the sentence the way you'd like it to read?
yeah, so it says further, the parties have yet to engage arbitration over the budget disputes. The district is making every effort.
To avoid arbitration.
But you're not saying eliminate the sentence, the parties have yet to engage.
No, I'm
But you did-
starting
I
a
get-
new
I get what you're
sentence.
doing.
So add,
That's period, the budget disputes, period, because at first I added to that sentence. Now I'm saying that's just its own sentence. The district is making every effort to settle these disagreements without
or
arbitration.
will make every.
Is making every
Is
effort.
making.
Is making every effort to settle.
To
these
resolve.
or resolve these disagreements without arbitration.
Okay.
Okay,
To resolve.
is that a motion?
Yes.
Just because you've changed your words a few times here, you need to really get down to the words you want in the motion. I wrote down the following and tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
The district is, being we are right now, making every effort to avoid arbitration, period.
Sure.
And that's where you said, I think, after the word lawsuit and before the word therefore.
Right after disputes.
I think it's after disputes.
Yeah, after
It's the last
disputes.
sentence of the
Add a
sentence.
She
sentence.
wants to add a sentence.
So it's just gonna say, the district is making every effort to avoid arbitration.
To resolve
To
To
resolve
resolve these
these
disagreements
disagreements
without,
to avoid,
without entering into arbitration.
to avoid arbitration. Yeah,
Okay, I got where you're going.
okay.
That's fine.
So that's my motion, and you want to read it back, Chelsea?
the district is making every effort to resolve these disagreements without arbitration. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so that's my
That is a
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Man.
I don't care at this point. It passes. Is there another change on page 4?
Yes. When the F2, the first sentence, there are 2 sewage collection
I
systems.
have only, there are 1 sewage collection.
Yeah, she's talking about the response.
The response,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
the question is there's only one, which serves both the city and the district. And the response is there are 2 sewage collection systems, one owned by the district, and the other, I wanted to insert older system owned by the city. No? Okay. All right, we'll take that out.
This is a response,
Yeah,
this is a
we-
response to
Okay,
the
we
grand
don't need to
jury.
go, okay, I took it out, we don't need even to discuss that, okay. F3. So it says the city and district jointly responsible for single sanitation led to significant needless expense. And it starts with, the system is comprised of 2 interconnecting systems. It is not accurate to describe it as a single, including in relation to governance. I just went into more explanation, and I don't know how that our systems are interconnected in a way that it's very difficult to separate.
Well, I think the F2 explained that we have 2 different collection systems, and it talks about the trunk lines and the mains. And then it also talks about how the city operates the plant. So that, because it's not in detail there, because it is in detail the paragraph before.
Yeah, okay. Then so that's was that page 4?
That was page 4.
So on the top of page 5. The district is responsible to serve and protect the best interests of the ratepayers and must conduct itself accordingly. The new operating agreement serves to further that in. I guess,
That seems just kind of.
The two,
That's
it's
okay.
a matter of semantics. The other agreement was called participation agreement by title,
okay,
and this was called operating agreement by title.
And it's also part of the attachments to this document,
okay.
the complete operating agreement.
Okay. Let's see. After 1 and 2, regarding benefits realized as a result of district oversight. Issues surrounding the district's right to treatment space capacity in the plant. I don't know, it's like, why can't we start that sentence, just issues surrounding the district's right to treatment space capacity in the plant was one subject in the lawsuit involved in the district's claims. We're kind of regarding benefits realized as a result of district oversight. It's like we're tooting our own, we're building ourselves.
Well, yeah, that was, the only reason that happened was because of our oversight. So I think it's completely appropriate to put it in a public document that, yeah, we did that. We should toot our own horn in our response.
I would say, for example, in this one particularly, item number 2 above the $706,000, that basically came around because I think Ernie was driving down the street.
Yeah.
And that's since the operating agreement. This is all new stuff. And Ernie raised questions with the accountants, who raised other questions, which resulted in us searching it just in the last 4 or 5 months. So this is all new information. This is information nobody even knew about at the time of the operating agreement. So the purpose of this is showing that the current board, being the 5 of you, is active in observing what's going on to protect the interests of the ratepayers. And these are 2 incidences that have been caught in the last 3 months to the tune of almost $900,000 savings to the ratepayers.
Okay, so,
So that's tooting your horn.
Okay.
That's what you guys are doing.
yeah. Page 6, let's see. When we're talking about the city and the district consumed.
Where are you at?
Which
Top of
paragraph?
page 6, the second paragraph, but I'm not sure, you said that you did document that the city undercalculated its ESSUs, but I didn't find it here. Somebody, the right for an additional.
If you go into the
six-
attachments, there's actually,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's not in
it's
here.
completely explained in the attachment.
Okay,
And there's actually a chart that shows the changes.
okay.
Now, it's interesting, just for your own benefit, Julie. In my letter to the foreman of the grand jury of December 19th, I was pointing out to him that the difference was 676 more for the district. We ended up agreeing, Sean and I did, to the lower number here for the district of 621, and that was all part of how Sean and I worked together to accomplish this.
Okay.
But the grand jury was fully aware of this a long time ago, we didn't inquire any further than that.
So the 6th paragraph talks about the district expenditures and diligence during the lawsuit and beyond resulted in an increase in $7 million in potential future connection fees and revenue. Now, the connection fees, the ESSUs are 12,240, but the connection fees are all different depending on what kind of connection it
The
is. So how-
12,240 is the connection fee.
It's the ESSU.
That's the ESSU.
Okay, but it's not the hookup rate because those
Well,
vary.
it's the same thing.
Same thing.
It's just, but your connection fee may be 12,000 and mine be 13,000 because I have more
More ESSU.
connection. And this,
1.25 ESSUs rather than 1.
the connection fees as they come in is pledged to the bonds
Okay,
by contract a long time ago. So when you take the numbers all added together in this document, the district is close to $20 million in numbers, and their bond obligation is barely above that. So you now have obvious financial capability of handling your bond indebtedness as you pay it to the city. Because the city's the obligee, you just have a contract to pay it.
okay. Then F4, while the turnover in district management has occurred due to a variety of reasons, I don't know why we have to put in any more detail than that. The district recently entered into an agreement with Willow Water. Okay,
If I can give you just a little history on this, ranging from illness, Frank Michael had cancer. And he had a leave of absence for a short period of time, was able to come back for a period of time, and then things got progressively worse for him. So that was a long period of time that the district, on a couple occasions, didn't have any leadership beyond the board itself.
Okay. Page 7. Qualified full-time management, it's very first sentence, especially from outside, okay. No, that's not, the district board has exercised and continued oversight of business affairs, financial transactions. Financial accounts materials, including details, are provided, have recently been provided at board meetings, have begun to be provided at board meetings, along with financial statements from the city and the county. And I don't, additionally, during the city district city lawsuit, the district financial conditions was highly scrutinized.
So even
I think that's
when,
kind of irrelevant.
even when this report was issued,
Mhm.
we were providing financial details to our meetings.
And that's what I read here, is that there was other third party that was involved, that was providing the information. That's how I read it.
During the issuance of this, while they were sitting in our meetings, we had financial detail here for them, so.
Right, but in the past,
if you,
we hadn't in the
But
past.
this is
but
a response
this is
to
a
now.
response to their
Okay.
inquiry
Yeah.
when this was issued.
To the specific font.
It doesn't matter what happened 6 years ago, or do you even know what was provided at the meetings 6 years ago?
Yeah,
You know?
I started coming and there wasn't much. That's why I ran for the board. Who was, okay, please call your mom, all right. Okay, down, the district's 2014-2018 financial statements and audits have been prepared and issued. Okay, so the financial statements as a result of the audits for 2014 to 2018. Now, I talked to the auditors and it said that the district's financial statements, no material adjustments were made. However, the auditors had several procedural corrections for keeping future financial information which was lacking or incorrect. And the board is adopting these new procedures. There was a lot that they said was substandard. And they made recommendations, I know they made recommendations to Chelsea and for keeping financial documents. I remember
For
I
having
talked
two
to you
people
about.
sign, how you keep the documents, but
That sort of
remember
thing.
what this is in a response to. This is still part of the response that
Due
the
to limited
the city
staffing.
and district, okay,
Well, it says due to, this is the statement from them. Due to limited staffing and high turnover, the district has not demonstrated capability to responsibly manage its business and financial affairs. Failure to provide audited financial reports for those years further demonstrates this lack of capability. So
Just for
even
the
though,
benefit of the record, as I call it, and that's that recording up there. You're reading from page 6, not page 7.
but I'm just reading what
No, I
the
understand that.
start of that, yeah.
But you have to say
Okay.
where you're reading so that
And
people
that-
watching this know what you're doing.
Yeah, so that was the F4
Finally.
from the grand jury, and this is
Correct.
answering part of it. So all I'm saying is that we're stating that now we have all of our affairs in order. We have financial account materials and including detail provided at board meetings, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong paragraph. That the 2014 and 2018 financial statements they put together and the audits have been prepared and issued. However, the auditors had several procedural corrections for keeping future financial information. In other words, we weren't doing things in the proper procedures in the past. And so we corrected those, but they had to point those out to us. So we were lacking.
well, no, their response is, we're failing to provide audited financial reports. And that's what we're responding to. We
Well,
don't need
we
to go
had-
into any more detail, right?
We had in
need-
the past,
So
no.
we're answering their,
But we just started this we just
We
started.
So
started
the
the
response is
audit
accurate
years
then? The response is accurate, that we have made the improvement.
Yeah, but we
So-
never mentioned that we were lacking in that.
we don't have
I mean,
to.
we just started making these improvements. when the auditor months ago called me and said there were severe shortcomings in our procedures, and so we're not even putting in our response that we recognize and we're adopting what they recommended.
Okay, if you wanna put in here that there's severe procedural whatever,
There were.
we have to put why there were. Because we have one staff person working part-time, so there cannot be 2 signatures on a document.
It's not just
with-
that.
No, no,
it's-
I know, but you can't just throw something in there without explaining it fully. So right now, all we're doing is responding to their, what is it called? Right?
Their question.
Yeah, so we're just
Well-
responding. We don't need to go into detail because now you're gonna be writing an entire essay on the audit.
No, all we need to do is say that we've adopted recommendations from the auditor to improve our.
I think the 4th paragraph, says, or the 5th paragraph, district's 2014 and 18 financial statements and audits have been prepared and issued. That shows that we now are on the right track, and that says enough to me, like, hey, they're on the right track. I read this whole thing. I really didn't have any problem with it, Julie. I thought that was answering the questions succinctly without, I mean, Duncan could have probably went on for another couple of weeks and it could have cost us a lot more money. I was disappointed it was as lengthy as it is.
And granted, we call these questions by the grand jury. These aren't questions. These are their findings. These are their facts. They're saying, here's what we found, right? So they're not asking us, hey, how are your audits going? No, they're saying you are financially irresponsible. You're not even doing your audits. And we're saying, okay, we've caught up, we've done our audits, and we're moving forward with all our financial documents in order.
Okay, so F5, in the absence of staffing, technical, financial expertise, blah, 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 blah. So I think we should acknowledge that may have occurred in the past. However, the district's new manager is well-versed in sewer and wastewater affairs, and the district has always maintained a contract engineer who consults on an as-need basis. So to me, it's just, the legal staff did overlap in management because we didn't have competent staff, but now we do. We want to acknowledge that that did happen in the past.
I think the opening sentence of the response says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
district
this report
man-
was dated, when did the grand jury, September, or no?
About 85 days ago is when I worked.
So June?
Whatever that was.
Okay.
So in June, they're saying our finding is that you're using all your attorneys for your staff. And we're saying, oh, we just hired a district manager, right? We have a district manager.
Okay. F6. The first sentence, to characterize the district's recovery from the city, page 8. To characterize the district's recovery from the city as damages is misleading. It is accurate. Why can't it be an interpretation by that? I mean, I know it's a legal.
Because it's a legal conclusion, and I'm not going to change it to say, well, some people might think it's not damages. The law is the law. And I
Okay.
believe in the law, and the law says these are damages. I don't care what other people say.
Okay, when we're talking about, the city, let's see,
What are we looking to amend in this particular instance?
he
I
just,
think
he
we have to
just
rely on
clarified,
Duncan's expertise. as
he
to
just
what
clarified it, so you don't need to discuss it anymore, okay?
Good.
I just brought it
Did
up.
anybody else on the board, when they read through this, have any substantial changes to this document? Or
No.
see anything offensive in this, or?
Well, I did, and I need to go over it.
No,
I
I'm
can't
just asking
I
if there was
can't just
anybody else
approve
while
it.
you're reading through. Is
Okay.
that, okay? Just want other board input if anybody else has suggestions.
Did, when the city, in the response for F6, it says that,
Where,
it says that the district recovered from the city as damages, the district claims against the city embraced improper charges levied against it by the city and the city's wrongful retention of district funds. Wasn't the city our fiduciary at that time, and didn't they have a right to keep our money? Is it the process of, we asked for it? How do you know?
If you stop right a fiduciary, you're 100% accurate. And as our fiduciary, they had an obligation to be transparent in the manner in which they handled our funds. They were not transparent in the manner in which they handled our funds. Now, when you take a look at these numbers, you can call these numbers as coming from anything, but settlements do not really envision getting 100% of what you were really after. And so to make things look nice, we agreed to say that these funds were really for over here and over here, because that was okay for the city and it made it nice for the city. I don't have a problem with that. The fact is, we didn't get the funds until we filed the lawsuit. And even though I personally tried on numerous occasions before the lawsuit was filed and before Sage ever became city manager to resolve the case, never did they come back and try to resolve the case until we got shoved right up against the trial date. And that's typical. That is not unusual. And so
I think
when
if
you
you
see
read
all
all
of this expense for preparing the lawsuit and the attorney fees that you incurred, I know it's a lot of money. Your return on investment was pretty high, because as you would have seen through all of the litigation that went on for 6 years, we would ask informally for information. We never got it. We were run around in circles time after time after time, which forced us to use our weapons available through the discovery system to succeed. And we did. If the city doesn't want to call them damages, that's okay. I don't mind. But they are legally damages, period.
Okay. F7, page 10. So the first paragraph of the response, the settlement, the last sentence there, the settlement occurred on the eve of the trial after the vast majority of litigation expenses had already been incurred. Don't you think a statement on litigation is always expensive and financially damaging to both entities, and should, and that's why it should be, I mean, it's unavoidable, the financial damages. The entire process.
It's a cost of doing business
Yeah, the
for
entire
everybody.
process demonstrates the need to have good lines of communication, trust, and professional approaches to negotiations to avoid future litigation. I just kind of wanted to put some kind of a positive statement in that shows that avoiding litigation in the future is the key to avoiding this type of financial damage to both entities.
But their finding is that we spent more on attorneys than we recovered, and that the difference will be paid by the ratepayers.
Which is a
So,
false statement.
so that is completely 100% a lie. That's a lie, that's a false statement, and so we're just responding to that.
Okay,
We're responding to that
but can
finding.
this statement add to that we acknowledge that litigation is costly, and that by the entire process demonstrates the need to have good lines of communication, trust, and professional approaches to negotiation to avoid future litigation,
That doesn't relate at all to their finding. We're just responding to their finding.
And that sort of implies that the city attorney and us did not have a professional negotiation process. Dave represented his client,
Not
did
so
a
much
great
the
job
attorneys,
representing
but
his
the
client.
board, the
What are you talking,
boards.
this all talks about the attorneys.
Okay, maybe it would go somewhere else, I don't know. Okay, so F10, the district's claim that it can save over 1.5 million by assuming responsibility for billing, maintenance, and sewage. Okay, treatment. I kind of thought that the district had proposed this in the past. The district had proposed it because I sat in these meetings. They proposed to want to take over the sewage treatment, build pocket plants, blah, blah, blah. The district had proposed this in the past. The district has no immediate plans to take over maintenance. That didn't make any sense. Maintenance, I thought it was maintenance or treatment.
I think the unfairness of F10 is the last phrase they used, is not supported by any documentation. Well, my response, I mean, if I really want to get the way sometimes I feel like writing, I would say, well, you never asked to the grand jury. And then we could give them the documentation that would support what the board had considered and looked at. I mean, it's educational things, people coming in and educating the board as alternatives here. I mean, that's what boards do. They listen to people and make judgment decisions. Well, they never asked us who came in and talked to you. They never asked about the experts that came in and talked to the board about the regional treatment plants and the cost of them and how it affects the cost of the ratepayers. Why did they?
Don't you think there should be a statement in there that it had proposed it in the past, but it has no immediate plans and that analysis would be done before any of, you know?
Well, I don't think that would be accurate.
What, that we hadn't proposed that in the
Not-
past?
I mean, aren't you talking about billing and collection?
No,
How
there,
about the last sentence, but will only proceed if there is cost savings and benefits to the district ratepayers? I think that applies to the whole gamut of what,
It does.
yeah, I mean,
yeah, and we are going to have a planning document will be presented in a public meeting, and that's written somewhere else, but I wonder why it wouldn't be here, that it would be
Well, wait,
presented
well,
in a
first of all,
public
if they're
meeting.
talking about something that the last board proposed, that was what, 3 years ago? When we got a presentation on the different ways of processing wastewater?
Mm-hmm.
So that was several years ago. So the fact that they're referring to this without any documentation and almost referring to our current board, it doesn't make sense.
It's an implication that this is the board that wasn't doing anything, and I think that's an unfair implication of this board. And when they say that we didn't provide any documentation, what's wrong with saying, well, you never asked us for any documentation, you just came to irrational conclusion? Because from all the numbers I've seen, it's a pretty easy number to verify, the 1.5 million. So, and I've only been involved in detail for 6 years on this. So
For billing and,
No, for everything. Billing, collection, because this covers everything, not just billing.
Well, yeah, and
Billing,
then
maintenance,
look
and
at
sewer
the
treatment.
look at the
But we're not
$800,000 we just saved last year, just this in the last 3
but we're
months.
not intending on,
When did the grand jury initiate their investigation?
Well, this would have been the grand jury that began in July of 18.
18. So yeah, this is.
And there's holdover grand juries. So some of the 17 grand jurors would be included in the 18 grand jurors. Some of the 19 grand jurors will have been on the 18 grand juries. I mean, it's just-
Okay. There was one thing I would have liked to see more in this was a response based on the prior grand jury findings. Where,
he mentioned it a bunch.
So it's mostly in the introduction.
This board did everything that the 2013 grand jury asked them to do.
right, and that,
So what's the problem?
I think that the response that we have in front of us is accurate. I like it.
Okay, well, on the top of page 11, when you're talking about that, the first paragraph, the last sentence, the district is not likely to assert.
Yeah, just for the record, you're talking now about,
Page 11.
yeah, but a part of the response to finding 11. You moved from 10 now to 11.
Yeah.
Wait, let me read what the finding is, so I have some reference to what we're
Future
talking
changes
about.
allowed in the settlement could trigger redundant expenses to be borne by all ratepayers. This includes detachment from the city and the district's assumption of their building maintenance and sewage treatment. And the district is not likely to assume a service function unless it is more economically efficient to do so. And I thought we should add unless at the word to assume a service function unless it undergoes careful economic and practical analysis and is found to be more economically efficient to do so.
I think it's just wordsmithing
Yeah,
at this
I think-
point. I don't think these are substantial changes to the facts.
You see, I think in their finding here, they do not understand the word detachment.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, they're talking about it the opposite of what it really is. So detachment is hypothetically if the overlap area was separated from the district. Well, why would this board detach the overlap area and cut your number of customers by 1,200? That wouldn't be. So the city has an application, or had an application before Local Agency for Information Commission, they found out 4 years ago, to detach the entire overlap area. That application stalled at LAFCO because one of the requirements of detachment is there cannot be an economic impact on the agency from which the property is being detached. And I know Willow Water ran through this problem not too long ago where they lost part of their property, but if 1/3 of the district customers were detached, that would have a dramatic economic impact on the remaining ratepayers.
But wouldn't the city take 1/3 more of the expenses?
Not necessarily, because you've got bond issues, and the district is still stuck with its percentage of the bond.
You're still paying on 65% of the ESSUs.
And that's
So it
just
wouldn't be
one
reduced.
variety of
No.
But
There's it would have an economic
just the
impact.
fact that they said there would be a duplication of, if
It
they
makes-
detached, that makes no sense at all.
Makes no sense to reality.
It's not, it doesn't.
Okay. So let's move to F12, the MOU JPA. Okay. So we point out in the beginning of the response that a review of the city's agendas and minutes does not reveal that the subject was ever discussed or approved by the city council. Rather, it was presented to the district by a sole city representative. So I have an issue with this because the board did not even read over it or consider or discuss to make changes to it, to rectify it so that it would satisfy to a starting point so that that person could take it back to their board as a starting point. It wasn't considered and presented to the city because
No.
We never addressed
But they gave us the document.
right,
They-
and we never looked it
Why
over.
should we, if it didn't come from their elected board?
Because
It did not, would you like me to hand walk a document to the city that you've never voted on or approved?
but I would like.
That doesn't,
I
that
thought
is
it
not
was
supposed
going
to happen.
Well, I don't know what the procedure is, but I thought.
And Julie, we did discuss this, we can go back in the minutes of the meetings, we did discuss this. Not terribly in depth because, in my opinion, it wasn't a equitable agreement that we were going to combine our $12 million worth of ESSUs in with the cities, and
Well,
if there was ever a problem in the future, since they will still be two separate entities, there was a lot of issues with it.
Right.
And there was more issues with it than a simple revision was going to deal with.
Well, and I remember that it was agreed by a majority of the board that before considering a JPA, that the new operating agreement and financial staff preparing monthly reports be given a chance to provide a better working relationship between the district and the city. And I thought maybe that might be added to the response, that before we look at a JPA, that we try to give this new approach a chance. And remember, that's what we concluded at the meeting.
Yeah, and I thought
But it's
that
not in this, response here.
I don't know if you, I mean, the detail that we have in our response here is probably more than necessary.
Yeah,
Because I think we could cut it down to say that the board considered a proposed JPA that was presented by whoever presented it, I don't know. And at this time elected not to go forward.
that could have been the response,
That
but
could have been
instead you
fine,
have
but
1,
what we
2,
did
3,
is try to
4,
explain
7
why.
paragraphs.
Why did the board come to that conclusion? Well, because it wasn't a JPA in reality. It was a complete divestiture of the district function, and the district ratepayers would no longer have any right to vote on anything. The district would then be controlled by the city. So if that's the case, then why doesn't the city just annex the entire district? And then it, in essence, we won't even have to have a JPA. That's
and you don't have to have the district, we would have a meeting.
Okay, so page 12, F13, the district has violated the intent of the Brown Act, which has reduced transparency. So,
Yeah, these are one of those things, Julie, where, okay, show us where.
well, I
I just
thought-
say, show us where to damn.
I thought after the sentence, the response, the reduced transparency was in the past, you know.
No. What reduced, tell me, what reduced
Well,
transparency?
I would come to meetings and nothing would be addressed. The board members.
But
would
no,
ignore-
this is talking about you. This document is this board. This is you.
Okay.
So what
Well,
lack of
so-
transparency has this board done?
It has.
I can
been-
tell you exactly what they're referring to.
What?
When I sat here and made a statement and that grand jury member asked for my personal notes, I said, no, you can look at the camera and get it in 3 days. And she said, no, I want your personal notes. And I said, no, there are things written on my personal notes that I did not state, that I don't want you to have.
Okay.
And she insisted and filed a, what is it called?
You told
Doug?
her that you would have it ready.
Public record.
Yeah, but I had a follow-up conversation.
And I
So-
specifically wrote a letter to the former grand jury saying, too bad, it's exempt, you're not entitled to it.
So that is why
I would say.
that intent of the Brown Act is in there, because
Okay.
there was a dispute whether they should have access to our personal notes as board members.
Okay.
And if they wanted them, they could have subpoenaed them. I could have filed a motion to quash the subpoena in court, and the court could have made a decision.
Yeah.
But they must have gone to Kit Elliott, and Kit must have said, they're right.
So there, just so everybody understands, there's no legal obligation for any of you to have your personal notes at a meeting and turn them over to a grand jury member. They're your personal notes.
Okay, so on page 14, which is the last page, so the response, R3, there's no, on the first page, there's no implementation for R3. The recommendation will not be implemented because it is not warranted or reasonable. I thought maybe the recommendation will be implemented only for proposing to take over maintenance or treatment. The district is looking into taking over only the billing and collections for their ratepayers. So can't we make a statement that it will be implemented for billing and collection, but we're not proposing maintenance or treatment? So recommendation number 3 had not yet been implemented, but will be implemented in the future in regards to billing and collections for their ratepayers.
It may be if it proves out to be economically viable.
Yeah, but
Or
we
it
say
may
we
not.
will not be implemented.
If it's
No, it
not
says-
economically viable, you wouldn't do it.
It's not going to be implemented right now at this moment, but if you read the next sentence, that we're looking into it, that we'll receive estimates and will only proceed if there's a cost savings, and it will be discussed in open sessions of board meetings.
Okay. So and then R4, the district board must act in accordance. Okay, the recommendation simply recites a legal obligation which the district has been complying with. Okay. I just thought that on R4, which the district has been complying with, the board will continue to improve its meetings procedures and will welcome any constructive suggestions to provide more transparency and public participation.
By saying that, if I hear you say that, and I'm looking at it, I say, oh, they've been violating the Brown Act.
What I would do is I would make a motion that we accept this response, and hopefully someone has a second.
So there's been a motion to accept the response with the two small changes that we did vote on.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to accept this response, approve it as the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District's official response to the grand jury report. Chelsea, how about a roll call vote, please?
Chair McNerlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair
Aye.
Webb, Director Reed,
Nay.
Director Baca, Director Baca.
I don't know, it's, I'm gonna pass. I just don't have enough time to, I didn't have enough
Is
time.
that finished?
So she can abstain.
Abstain, sorry, I don't know the right term.
Director Marshall?
Aye.
The vote, please.
3-2. Carries.
So 3 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. The motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes. Does anyone have any corrections?
Teresa?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
So you know, it was, having Julie go through this entire agreement took quite a bit of time, but you know something? It's out in the open. It was discussed, item by item.
Thank you.
And so, it was a little rather laborious, but,
I appreciate
I felt it really reinforced what this document says.
Yeah, and Julie, thank you for putting so much time into that. And we
Yeah.
appreciate it, and it was good to have discussion on it. Even if we did seem like we were sometimes frustrated, it's all good, okay? All right, thank you. Okay, so, item number 7, approval of board meeting minutes. Does anyone from the gallery wish to comment on the minutes? Seeing none, does the board have any corrections or changes to the minutes? The motion
Make a motion,
I'll second it.
to approve the minutes?
approve the minutes.
August 14th, 2019 regular meeting. Second by Vice Chair Whip. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item, number 8, is the consent calendar. I have the check register for August, the county expenses for August, and reports from the city for July. Does anyone wish to pull an item off of the consent calendar for separate consideration? Or is there a motion to accept the consent calendar?
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
So motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there anyone from the gallery that wishes to comment on this item? No, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, announcements and other business matters. I'm gonna hand it over to Jared because we have a couple of things he's going to update the board on as under the general manager report, ongoing district business.
Thank you. Couple quick items in regards to the rate study. We've been continuing to work with Mr. Hildebrandt along with the city. Mr. Hildebrandt is still looking for some more information in regards to the billing data from the city, ongoing process. He is in hopes he can have this ball back on track here by the end of this month. So we have bi-weekly conference calls scheduled. Hasn't been a whole lot to really report on in the last couple weeks. Dan Buffalo's been pretty good at responding to some of this stuff too. Second is just a quick little update on the billing and collections. Staff, along with consultants, have been working with the bond council for options to proceed. Really just looking to follow up the next regular scheduled meeting. So nothing new to report on that. And that's it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the district manager? Or fill-in district assistant district, what's your official title?
Number 2.
Sit in.
Okay, are there any staff reports?
Yeah, that's me.
Chelsea.
Okay, so I just wanted to update the board on a couple things. One is I had a little mishap with a customer that came in and was wondering why her bill wasn't changed for the new fiscal year. As you know, we change bills for Millview, Regina, and Willow. So I called the city and asked to speak to Lori Martin, who I work very well with. She's the billing and customer service manager with the city of Ukiah. And she actually said that she has 5 new employees in her department, and she was one of them was supposed to help her recalculate the sewer bills for Willow Water District. So it was just that spreadsheet, and it never got changed. So our customers received the same bill that they were receiving for fiscal year 18-19 in the new month of fiscal year 19-20. So I just wanted to update you guys and let you know that that's going to either be credited or they're going to be charged more based off what their new adjustment is. So that was kind of unfortunate, but hopefully they make all the corrections.
How many months is that gonna take that they're gonna pay the wrong bill before they get a corrected bill, do you know?
Probably just one. I know that, I hope one. I hope it doesn't continue on for a couple months, because that'll just make it more complicated.
And Chelsea, what water districts are included, just Willow or all 3?
No, they made the appropriate changes for Millview and Regina. Just somehow, I don't know what happened. I don't work there, but it just didn't get changed. The rates for all Willow customers remained the same. Okay, and then a little update on the Oak Manor project, the reimbursement for that. I reached out to Mr. Peak, who is the district's financial accountant, whoever you want to consider him. I asked him if he had any further information that shows that we have been reimbursed in full for the Oak Manor project, which is, the exact amount is $706,145. And his response to me was, the last time I spoke with the city, they stated they would be finalizing the closing of the books and would provide financial information around mid-September. So it is unlikely I will receive any information as to the resolution of this matter until that time. So I should receive an update from Mr. Peak regarding the reimbursement mid this month. If I do receive an update via email from him, I will make sure to forward it all to you guys.
That's not what this person from the city at our last meeting stated. He said they were taking care of it that week.
That there was a journal entry or something, but I guess for us to cross-reference, I guess, with the financial statements to make sure we were reimbursed for that, Jeff won't know until they finalize and close their books, I guess.
So, as well as that, I also asked Jeff to cross-reference the ESSU hookup fees that we should have received according to the email we had recently got before our last meeting from the city, and he couldn't find them. So there were 4 that he could not find the journal entry for receiving the ESSU connection fees. And so that was also something that you need to talk to Dave about and keep an eye on. And we need to, when the city makes their final adjustments or whatever it is, and the email's in the district manager box, we need to keep an eye on that. Because that's, altogether, we're talking of, between $700,000 and $800,000.
Yeah.
Well, have we ever seen, I've asked numerous times about the project on Brush Street that is 90-some units at 0.6 of an ESSU per unit, a considerable amount of money. I have never seen that on any report that this board's received. And in fact, if you look at right now, if you look at this particular report, we had $29,000 worth of connection fees. And I know that there's been considerably more than that in the last month.
And then one last
So,
thing.
that's direction to staff to follow up on that. And it could be, it takes 3 months for it to be processed by the city and get put into a report, we don't know, but, we definitely need to look into the Brush Street, look into the 4 that Jeff Peak referenced, as well as the Oak Manor. Okay, thank you.
And then one last thing that I'd like to update the board on is, I did give an update on the district customer list that we received March of 2019. It was a list that I requested from Lori Martin. She sent me an Excel spreadsheet back, saying that here are all the current active sewer accounts, and this was a list of 1,494 customers. And then, compared to the most recent list that I received after requesting again, just because we knew that we had more than 1,400 customers, she said attaches this SD, which is probably Sand District, customer list requested for overlap and outside customers. And the report had 2,746 customers listed, so just wanted to give an update.
So I actually looked at that number and I looked at in last year when we got all of our customers and adjusted their bills with the current water data for their sewer bills. We're only 15 customers off outside the district, which could just be 15 vacant homes, right? But within the city limits, we were 52 customers off. And so I don't know if there's 52 parcels vacant of people who are not paying bills right now in the overlap area. So that was a discrepancy from September 2018 as compared to April 2019, which I investigated myself. So I'm not quite sure how confident I am in that specific list. Only one parcel do I know is the jail, which we're talking about, is whose is it, but I don't know about the other 51 accounts. So that I think I sent you that an email to you that we need to follow up on that and see what's going on with 50 accounts that have disappeared over the last year. And then also in looking at the average charge for the out of the overlap area, district only accounts is $100 is about the average charge. The average charge of a sewer bill for the overlap area is $55. So that seemed, I couldn't really figure out why. I don't know, is there just everybody in the overlap area just smaller houses, or I'm not quite sure.
I think that would be a reasonable place to start, you know.
Yeah, so
You know, a lot of the district is larger parcels with more landscaping and people gardening, maybe they have some
Yeah.
animals.
yeah, but
I
our
don't
base
mind
rate
water.
is 52, right? Sarah, I almost called you Sarah. Chelsea, our base rate $52,
$53.47.
$53.47. So that means the water usage portion of their bill is less than $2. Didn't really make sense to me, so I think that's something staff we should at least look at, so I feel more comfortable with
Yeah.
that and have an explanation of the difference between 55 and 100, right?
Yeah,
As the
sure.
average bill.
And it's all based on wet weather, so it really, my explanation's probably kind of lame.
Water usage. It's based on water usage.
Based on water usage in the wet weather months,
Right.
so.
Okay. So just to follow up to that.
I did get a bill, you should check your house too, Joe. I recently got my sanitation district bill, except it's not for the sanitation district, it's for the city of Ukiah. And of course, I live in the district.
Well, there's been some clear,
And it's gone
Yeah.
up, mine went up.
there's
Yours going?
there's been some issues with billing.
No, mine's got right there, but, They have mine going directly to the city. Usually the bill would show UVSD on top for segregation, that's no longer on my bill.
I'll have to
Come
look.
see me.
Hmm?
Come see me.
Yeah, so, this is just more support on why we should investigate, maybe doing our own billing and collection and having a firm handle on what the revenue is and how much everyone's getting charged and exactly who are our customers and how many customers we have.
Mm.
So,
Well, and then this creates more of the problem, which we've dealt with for years, but when you compare the income and then start dividing into it the roughly 5,000 ESSUs in the district, nothing makes sense.
yeah.
Nothing makes sense.
So Chelsea, thank you for, I know a lot of customers have been coming in the last month or two because their bills are higher and lower and not changed, and you've been trying to get answers for them, and you've discovered some issues that have, like, not getting updates and things like that in the computer. So just want to thank you for all your work on that. I know that it's not been easy.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, is that all for your staff
Yeah,
reports?
that's it. Yep.
Are there any director's reports? How about letters received or sent? Okay, the next regular meeting is October 9th, 2019, and we are now going into closed session at 8:06 p.m.
Two of the board members had to leave, so I'm calling the meeting back to order at 8:49. And we have finished closed session and gave direction to council
And staff.
and staff. So I think that's it.
Next meeting?
Next,
Meeting adjourned at?
at 8:49.
Okay.
Next meeting is 10:09, right?
Next meeting,
That sounds right.
10/9/19.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.